We thought we could combine different dinosaurs' DNA, but it all went horribly wrong!
Good enough for me! Let's go, go, go!
Welcome to Cordkillers. Our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you, my friends, are empowered with the information you need to be able to control what you want to watch, where you want to watch it, when you want to watch it, what device you want to watch it on. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and more importantly, that was a fantastic ad for a bunch of toys related to the Jurassic Park franchise circa 1998, where they decided to drop a spoiler 17 years ahead of time, revealing the entire plot of Jurassic World, which we'll talk about later on in this episode. How you doing,
Honestly,
man?
if you watch that entire commercial, you will be spoiled on the plot of Jurassic World. I'm not even kidding.
That's amazing,
it's uncanny.
To be honest, like I didn't. Once it like the initial part, I'm like, oh my god, this is exactly what I saw in the trailers. Everything else in that toy commercial, I'm like, I assume this is peripherally related, but you're saying it's exactly
follows the plot arc.
That is amazing, dude.
Yeah. Maybe it's just pattern recognition on my part, but I was watching it. I was like, oh my, did they just use this as their like treatment? They just, here, we'll make a movie like this. Anyway, we will talk about that more a little later on, but let's welcome in our guest for today's episode. Activist at EFF, Parker Higgins, is joining us. Thanks for joining us, Parker.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, so we just heard, like, did you recently cut the cord, or are you a longtime cord cutter, or what's your story?
A long time. I think I'm one of those people who never really had the cord.
Oh, you're a cord never. There's a word
yeah.
for your kind. Yeah, right on.
So it's hard to have a date. I don't have an anniversary of my cord cutting.
It was
just your birthday.
There was only one cord, and it was hooked up to your mom. And then once that was cut, that was the only cord forever.
OG cord cutter. Going all the way back. Well, good. We've got a couple of stories here today that I know you can sink your EFF expertise teeth into, if I can really just take a metaphor and twist it as far as I possibly can.
I love that.
Expertise.
Sink your expertise into.
And let's start off with our primary target. So Recode is saying that Yahoo is re-upping with Katie Couric for $10 million a year. All Katie Couric's spokesman will say is, yeah, she's re-upping. But that's a lot of money. She signed on with Yahoo, if you remember, back in 2013. Does interviews now. Celebrities, business leaders. She had Bernie Sanders on, so politicians. And the question is, as people are seeing them spend all of this money, they go in lots of different directions. Is that a smart way for Yahoo to spend their money? Well, CEO Marissa Mayer says she's a great investment. So she thinks they're getting their money's worth out of Katie Couric. And is it Yahoo becoming, and this is my question, Brian, the mainstream broadcaster of internet television? So they have Community. They have David Pogue on, who's a very accessible tech reporter. They have Katie Couric. These are all the kinds of personalities and shows, I mean, in Community's case, directly you would see on an NBC or an ABC or a CBS.
So this is one of those weird, perverse moments where, on the one hand, is this what the consumer cares about? I'm going to say no. Is it what I care about? Absolutely not. Is it what most of the people even watching it care about? You know, do they want Yahoo to have the trappings and authority that, you know, old media has? Nobody does. But there is one segment that probably very much wants to see these things, and that's the advertisers. And of course, Yahoo was, and always has been, you know, funded by the advertisers. So it would make sense that let's get a recognizable name. Let's get a few exclusive interviews. It doesn't matter if anyone's watching, because notice one thing that you didn't mention in the rundown was how popular this content was. Doesn't matter how popular it is. What matters is they're wearing this dress. They're wearing the Katie Couric dress, and that's what's going to make them look good at the upfronts ball.
Well, she often does pantsuits and stuff too, but
touche.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Although I'm going to disagree with you on the consumer part of it, because I do think that Yahoo's homepage is the default landing page for a lot more people than you might think. That is why advertisers are interested in all of this stuff, because it gets put in front of a vast audience. It's not the techie people. It's not the cord cutting people even necessarily. It's your average mainstream person who goes to Yahoo and reads it. That's why Yahoo is still existing. Parker, what do you make of this move by Yahoo here?
Well, it's a big bet on individual talent, which is interesting to see. Yahoo doesn't have a really exciting track record in the last couple of years, and this does feel like the sort of thing that if it appeals to a base, it appeals to a base that isn't, us. Um,
Which, but nice euphemism for young people. A base that isn't, under 40.
but yeah, there might be people who like it, and it's interesting to see this sort of investment. If it's an investment in content that is heavily branded Yahoo, and that is that they make quickly, it's got new content each day and sort of thing, where I think that's a little more viable than if they were dropping this kind of money, this kind of investment into talent that where they're making a show or they're making something that can easily get outside of the Yahoo front page.
So this is something, let me throw this to you, Tom. One of the things that ushered in, once Marissa Mayer came in, a lot of her big plays have been to kind of rehabilitate the reputation of Yahoo. And one of the early plays was acquiring exclusivity to the SNL clips and making entire, sub-channels of Yahoo for that. And then, of course, the acquisition of Community was sort of their Arrested Development play. And now, re-upping with Katie Couric. Could it be that all of this is just maintenance cost to shore up the house of Yahoo, and sort of, it used to be when you thought of Yahoo, you thought of a clown parade of different CEOs going through a revolving door and a search engine that nobody used anymore. But nowadays, Marissa Mayer, I suspect, especially understanding that she's beholden to the shareholders, all of these seem like smart plays that probably have shareholders generally pleased with what she's doing.
Yeah, the issue with the shareholders is their patience is starting to run out on the turnaround. They want to see financial results faster than they're getting. But without going down that whole rat hole of Marissa Mayer's viability and her vision, et cetera, I do think that you are seeing Yahoo trying to create a clearer, more focused vision for itself compared to that, like you say, although it would make a good show, like just a clown parade of CEOs. I think they're trying to say, we are your familiar face. Katie Couric is a familiar face. David Pogue is a familiar face. We are welcoming on the web. My problem is, I think you're right, Brian, in your instinct to say, hey, how many people are on the internet really interested in watching this kind of stuff yet? Because the people may be on the internet who like Katie Couric and like her interviews, but they may be still watching TV for that. They may not be watching that on their laptop. They may not have a set-top box that has a Yahoo channel on it, or even think to use it if they do. And by the time that audience starts to shift into using tech that way, CBS, NBC, and ABC may have made that shift as well. So it could also be too early for Yahoo to be able to take the best advantage of this. I don't know. Well,
let me throw this to you, Parker, because it seems to me like there's a parallel happening here where it's like there's old media years and then there's new media years. And I think, obviously, NBC, CBS, ABC are all the blue chips of old media. But in new media terms, Yahoo is the old blue chip. They're the IBM of new media, in which case it would make sense for them to borrow all the trappings, get those familiar faces, like old reliable Yahoo will always be here with faces I mean, is this like a Pepperidge Farm kind of thing that they're going for?
It could be. I think that makes a lot of sense. And to go back to a point that was mentioned earlier, the traffic numbers are still, I mean, if you look at other news sites, when you look at their referrals, getting on the Yahoo front page is still a huge thing. So I think it's easy to write it off as old reliable Yahoo, but I do think it's a lot of people's homepage, and that matters, and that it as a lot of the newer new media sites specialize further and further, it makes sense that Yahoo might want to continue to be that really broad appeal, and that costs money to do.
Do you remember when
Yes Man in the chat room says Yahoo is CBS, Tumblr is the CW?
Maybe. I just love the idea that Yahoo could say, do you remember when search results were curated by individual humans? Yahoo remembers.
We still keep a room of them just in case. Yeah, Yahoo. Nobody got fired for buying Yahoo? I don't know if that works. Well, we hope we don't get fired by any of our bosses, but we have a lot of them. So we try to keep you all as happy as possible. Patreon.com/Cordkillers is how the show is funded. We are at your mercy, folks. We look at how good we are doing by how much you've decided we are worth.
Yeah, dude. As you mentioned early on, borrowing a phrase from the folks over at No Agenda, we have a value for value model. If you believe that we've saved you a buck, that we've given you pertinent and relevant information, understand that we are only loud, live, and independent by your good graces. So head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers and be one of our bosses.
Please join them, and then we'll give you more signals intelligence like this.
Whoa, that was a magic trick. Amazement.
All right, so on Friday, YouTube declared war on Twitch, announcing YouTube Gaming, which you can sign up for at gaming.youtube.com. It's in private beta right now. It's both an app and a website meant specifically for watching gameplay or video game related videos. They take only video game stuff out of YouTube and package it up for you. It's coming to the US and the UK this summer for everyone later on. They break it down by the type of game. So if you have a title of a game, say Far Cry, you can just see all the video gameplay around that. They have creators. So if you like PewDiePie, everyone likes PewDiePie, apparently. You can see all his videos, or publishers. Square Enix has their own category, etc. They also have an improved live experience. They're really trying to bolster the gameplay element of this by making it easier for broadcasters. One link to share all your streams. You don't have to send out a different link every time you stream. 60 frame per second video. A DVR, so if you join late, you can go rewind up to, I think it's 3 hours back and catch up with what the player is doing. And of course, the automatic conversion to YouTube videos after you're done with the live stream that they've been doing for Hangouts Live and everything for a long time. So, Brian, here we are, YouTube, land of the content ID fight with Nintendo and many other things. By the way, my wife works at YouTube Space. She let me play with the app a little bit. It's kind of nice. How's their chances against Twitch?
I'll tell you what, just as a microcosm, understand, and I can't wait to hear what Parker says about the content ID, the way that factors into all of this stuff, because I've heard horror stories and I've seen entire money-making revenue streams for some of my independent gaming friends shut down because of YouTube. However, having said all of that, when it comes to live streaming, when there's content that you absolutely want to see, I knew that at 8:10 last night that, oh crap, the Bethesda announcement's happening. And I immediately went to twitch.tv because I knew the first thing I'd see was the Bethesda thing, right up front and personal. Then we jumped forward, and then I had to leave because we had to watch Game of Thrones. And then we came back, and I tweeted out, hey, I guess there's post-show coverage happening for the Bethesda thing. Where can I see the stuff on Fallout 4? And the number one answer was, yeah, you can rewind on the YouTube feed. And so I went over there, and sure enough, it was still live with a bunch of post-show stuff, but I was able to just grab it and dial back until I saw a Vault Dweller and catch it all up. I got to tell you, man, the quality of the stream from YouTube is superior to that of Twitch. Twitch, I cranked everything up to source level above the highest bit rate that they had, and it still kind of looked kind of chunky. It looked gorgeous on YouTube. And as much as I would like to believe that Twitch is making a smart play by developing their constellation of personalities, by having man of man versus game on there and all that stuff, and really focusing on the character of it, YouTube's crisp, clear, gorgeous coverage may have won the day for a lot of people watching right now. So it'll be interesting to see how stuff plays forward. When you look into your crystal ball, Parker, where do you see this going for YouTube? Because obviously they've had a lot of, as we mentioned, content ID difficulties. Twitch is a little able to play a little bit more fast and loose than YouTube. Where do we go from here, do you think?
Well, I mean, I think you've put your finger on really what the big question is here. Is this is it was pitched as this is perfect for gamers, and then when you describe the benefits, it sounds like it's perfect for game companies.
Yeah.
And yeah, the real question I think is whether this ends up being having the same priorities as gamers, because YouTube was that for a while, and then really has gotten into a couple of situations where gamers have felt really betrayed and really put out by the way that content ideas worked, and even in some cases where that message was given to them in advance, it wasn't really communicated clearly. And so that I think has been the biggest pain point, and it's been one of the biggest reasons that people go to Twitch. And we've seen. I hear you on the video quality, but we've seen a million times and a million other media that the thing that you think might be the most important factor ends up taking a back seat to convenience and to being able to get what you want. And so if YouTube has the best video quality, but half of your streams get taken down, or you can't monetize them, or you can't do whatever, then it may not be the place for Let's Play broadcasters or other gamers.
Yeah, that's definitely a phrase that we've circled around a lot, is the idea that convenience trumps fidelity. And if Twitch definitely seems like right now to still be the most convenient platform, especially because it's integrated in with the PS4 and so on. But the Content ID thing, you have to have heard stories in the past, horror stories of some of the stuff they're doing. I know our friends over at Rage Select were surprised to find out that every single one of their Nintendo titles, without any consultation on their part, they had put up all these Let's Plays, and they just got a note. They're like, "Hey, that's great that you're doing Nintendo Let's Plays. Well, we're sending the checks to Nintendo. Hope that's cool with you. Thanks, bye."
Yeah.
I mean, is that going to be? Do you suspect YouTube's play moving forward?
Well, we've seen this play out a little bit with YouTube and record labels, for example, and also to some extent to TV studios, and yeah, it's an impressive and exciting thing when they can get this to work in a permissionless way and just say, no, our users have the right to do this. But it's easier and it builds a bigger moat if you can make a deal, and so. YouTube and Twitch have the clout to make those deals. And while I would like to see more reliance maybe on fair use, or more of a just assertive, no, we're not going to take down Let's Play videos unless there's clear infringement sort of thing, I do think that it's likely that we'll see deals get made, and when deals get made, maybe that's a portion of revenue, or maybe it's all the revenue, or maybe it will drive people away from certain game publishers and things like that isn't quite the organic community that we've seen happen around Let's Play.
And don't forget that Twitch is owned by Amazon now. And so a lot of those issues with streaming quality and everything could be solved. Amazon certainly has the firepower to help with that sort of thing. Cloud services, S3, all that kind of stuff. However, the one thing that Amazon doesn't have quite as much experience with is the stuff that Parker's talking about, fighting for rights and what you can get away with and what you need to ask permission for, and what you should probably ask for permission for, even though maybe you don't have to, because it'll just make things easier later. YouTube got sued by Viacom a long time ago, and that's the biggest favor Viacom ever did for this particular battle, was it put YouTube through this whole process of figuring out how to deal with rights. YouTube has also fought with Nintendo, or you may not think they fought much with Nintendo at all, but they had to go through that issue of Nintendo seizing streams. So YouTube probably feels fairly confident in saying, we're not going to piss off the publishers, so it's easy to archive, which is one of the reasons Twitch started to reduce what you could archive on Twitch, is that just solved that question for them of what they were allowed to do. Here's my question, Parker, this is the question. I don't expect you to have the silver bullet answer. How should this all work? Especially with video games, it's very clear that if I take a television show from someone in its entirety and put it up on YouTube, that's a copyright violation under the existing law. It's not exactly clear that if I'm creating a video game by my gameplay, even though it's using assets from a company, where those rights should be. How do we get it so that we have the most fair use and publishers feel comfortable with it, and companies like YouTube and Twitch feel comfortable letting us stream it?
Yeah, no, that you're right that's the big question, and one that hasn't really been solved yet. I think a lot of the sort of heavily critical kind of Let's Play videos that we see, where it's actually a review, that's an easier case where it's probably just fair use and it doesn't matter that the gameplay footage itself is copyrighted. But yeah, there are gray cases, and there are cases where it's it could go one way or another, and that's why I think that it's likely that deals between the publishers and YouTube or Twitch are going to carry the day. But it'd be nice if the thing that I would like as an activist and as a member of the public interest community is for these game companies to sort of get out of the business of selling gameplay footage, which they're not really in the business of doing that. I mean, they don't license or sell this footage as a major part of their revenue stream. They just block other people from using it. And so it seems like it's transformative enough the way that people use it that it's not a substitute at all for buying the game. And it would be nice if game companies just kind of came to terms with that and adopted a much more permissive stance. But I don't really know why they would do that right now.
It almost seems like we're seeing echoes of what's already happening in the modding community. There's a lot of back and forth where people write mods, and then of course Steam took a lot of heat recently when they opened up a mod store, and then they just announced that they were going to take a cut of whatever monies for the mods that people make. It does feel like a very nebulous, very mushy space that's still being hashed out. Is there something, if there's a particular side of the coin that consumers are on, is there anything they could do? I would assume as an activist you would have some best practices if to make your opinion heard.
Yeah, well, so right now we're in the middle of a process. It has to do not quite with Let's Play or with modding, but we're in the middle of a process where we're petitioning the Copyright Office to allow people to archive older video games, or to make to put up like multiplayer servers where that game's been abandoned.
You're talking about the actual software, like just what in my time as a pirate was called abandonware. Just it's so old, who cares about it?
Right. And now a lot of that abandonware depends on a third party or a first party server, and when that goes down, then the game doesn't work anymore. And so as part of that process, we, until very recently, have had a way for people to weigh in and support our petition for that. The response from the publishers has been very, very opposed, that this constitutes hacking, and hacking is a scary thing, and so we don't want people to be able to do this. And so that's been our main effort. It's procedurally, it's right at a place where now the Copyright Office is hearing it, and we'll see what they say about it. But this is definitely an ongoing battle. And EFF does a lot of work on video games in particular. That you think that some of these issues should be settled, but they're still very much on the proverbial frontier.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what we can do as lowly foot soldiers is contribute what change we have to pocket at EFF.org.
I think that's right now. I wish that we had something going right now that you could sign a petition or something. But yes, support and follow. And if you're interested in this, we do a lot of work around video games, and we will continue to keep you posted if you follow us.
Right on.
All right, we got some more of this kind of thing to talk about in our gear segment of all things this week. Let's gear up.
What?
It's Brian.
Yeah.
Parker. This is a segment about gear, right? Gear. It's hardware. TiVo is the one we're talking about today. It's a hardware box. It's capable of doing things. It's basically running Linux. It's a Linux server. You should just be able to access whatever you want off there. And in fact, you can if you modify it, but not everybody wants to go through that. So TiVo is now offering a way to access that server that you own, whether it's a TiVo Romeo or a TiVo Premiere, through online.tivo.com. It's the best thing in the world. You can stream your live TV. You can access all the recordings on your DVR. It's all available in a web interface. Not really meant for mobile, but basically any standards compliant browser can get it. Includes the TV guide, gives you recommendations, lets you do search. It has to be on the same network as the TiVo. They're not using the internet for it yet. It's that one little thing, Brian. It just has to be in.
I was waiting for the but, and then you threw the biggest butt in the universe. Keep going.
And some of the content that you actually have recorded and have on the hardware that you own may not be available for streaming at all due to copyright issues or other technical restrictions.
Can I tell you? Okay, this is a bait and switch headline, Tom. You're telling me that I can watch all my TiVo stuff on my laptop? I think, oh, hooray, it's a built-in sling box into every TiVo unit out there. And then it's like, psych, you could watch it all the way from the other side of your house. Congratulations, only on these devices.
That's the funny thing there, Brian, is if I plug my sling box into my TiVo, which I have, I can do all of these things. There don't seem to be any problems or technical restrictions on it.
Is this so you're saying like it's a half-assed, well, okay, well, let's say it's a well implemented homage to the Slingbox benefits with none of the actual Slingbox benefits beyond the perimeter of your house.
Well, yeah, and honestly, just to be fair, when you're on the same network with it, let's say I'm downstairs and I've only got the one TiVo upstairs, I can access all that stuff. That's great, right? It is a really good service in that way. But why I have to go to the web, to their domain, to get something that's just available inside my house is kind of ridiculous too. Parker, what do you make of all this?
Well, it sounds like you guys have forgotten the lucrative market of people on house arrest, for example. This is going to be a godsend to them.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, this is the downside, from our last segment talking about why it might be easier to make deals. This is the downside of making deals, is that Slingbox just says this is your right as a user to do this sort of place shifting, and TiVo cuts deals, and it turns out to be kind of bad deals. They've built this in a way that, it's really not what users want or what they ought to be entitled to. There's Supreme Court precedent on this going back 30 years, and that's not what we're looking at.
And it's such a shame, too, because like TiVo has from the very beginning, I mean, they originated the idea of DVRs, and they had, for years, the best interface in the business. And they were a pioneer. But I suppose that going along with that involved all these entangling alliances, as Thomas Jefferson would call them. and now they're having to pay for it, and that they can't do what clearly the consumer wants. Although, again, none of that is to take a dump on this. It's great that they're taking steps in the right direction, that they're offering more. I would just love to see TiVo double down and, as you put it, Parker, take a more Slingbox style attitude towards it.
Yeah, and I think it's a great insight that the reason they're not is because they kind of went down a particular road that prevents them from doing it. Because it's not illegal for TiVo to add a Slingbox type element to the box. Although Dish, who owns Slingbox, has run into some threats from people when they've done that sort of thing. They've always prevailed. What it is exactly what Parker said. They've struck deals with people in the past, and they don't want to risk those business partnerships. So if they gave you a full-on Slingbox type participation here, then they would risk those deals. And the other thing, don't forget, they mentioned that in the TechCrunch article, is that TiVo bought the Aereo identification. So there may be a little motivation on that side to say, also don't give people access to something that we might be able to charge them for under the Aereo brand name a few months or a year from now.
Oh, man, I'd hate to say it, but I think you just cracked the case wide open, Sherlock Holmes. I was going to say Sherlock Merritt. But yeah,
that would be trademark infringement.
I know. Yeah, Sherlock Merritt's already an established IP. Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. That because I was thinking like the pressure can't be that bad against TiVo, but if the pressure is from within another segment of TiVo saying, "Cool it, we bought this IP for a reason," then I could see that.
Yeah, I was going to say that Aereo has left a lot of people skittish, but yeah, this connection's actually even closer than that. Aereo, I could do a whole. You're lucky you didn't have me on then, because the Aereo decision was just endlessly frustrating.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started.
Sorry,
I
don't want to bring it up.
It was like, look, I mean, Aereo built the most ridiculous Rube Goldberg contraption with the only intent of being compliant to the law, and then it's like, nah, looks like you're trying to skirt the law. It's like, no, we're trying to obey the law. That's why we have to do this ridiculous thing.
Yeah. So I do think that skittishness might be one reason, but also, yeah, if they are going to sell it, then that makes it an even easier case.
By the way, not to admonish you, Parker, but people in the chat room are shouting, too soon. It's been too soon to talk that way about Aereo.
I'm just going to pour a little out.
Yeah.
Right now. So I think we solved it from both sides. It's basically like, oh, we got some money back then that we don't want to risk, and we got some money coming up ahead that we don't want to risk. And yet, I think that maybe, I don't know, Parker, am I right in saying that one of the most interesting things about this is it really doesn't have to do with copyright law so much as copyright fear?
Oh, absolutely, and that's over and over what we see with big private companies doing this. It's the same thing with Content ID and video games. There haven't been a bevy of lawsuits around against YouTube or against users. This is just an abundance of caution and companies saying like, well, we want to make sure that we're inside the law, and so we're going to do more than we have to, and we're going to build this service with less bells and whistles than we can. And we're all lucky that that's not what Betamax thought in what Sony thought in the 80s, or else we wouldn't have the Betamax machine.
Heck yeah, and I wouldn't have all my
chilling
childhood
effect
movies.
So large that if we could harness it, we could refreeze the polar ice caps.
Yeah, exactly. That's your geohacking is.
All right. Hey, man, real quick, in addition to, of course, our fabulous supporters over at Patreon, both Tom and I make a few bucks on the side. Tom sells books. I sell stuff over at scamstuff.com. We call it Gear for the Modern Rogue. And we ran across something that I think you guys will dig. Check this out. This is a gizmo. I don't know how to it's an enclosure where you drop, those cheap 59-cent Scripto Bic lighters, that you get at the gas station?
Yeah, sure.
You drop one of those in there, and this thing has a special nozzle that seals everything off, and it makes it into one of those badass cigar lighting torch things. And then when it runs out, you don't have to find a butane lighter or refill thing or nothing. You just drop in another cheap lighter, and this thing goes for 20 minutes straight with a jet blue flame. That's available over at scamstuff.com. It's pretty badass.
So it's just a nozzle. It's just a badass nozzle.
Well, yeah. Well, here, take a look at this. Let
That's
the
amazing.
animated GIF speak for itself, Tom. You just drop in a cheap lighter, and it becomes a badass torch, blowtorch.
That's ingenious.
Yeah,
I
I was in love once I got that thing. Shall we move on, sir?
Yeah, let's. I think we have some front lines to do.
What, front lines?
Front lines!
Amazon will bring UK comedy Catastrophe to the US on Amazon Prime June 19th. It's a British comedy about a guy who decides to move back to the UK after these one-night stands turn into a pregnancy. It's a comedy, romance, etc. But here's the interesting part to me. It's debuting the 30-minute pilot on Facebook. Yes, I said Amazon Prime. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, but they're debuting the 30-minute pilot on Facebook for 48 hours starting today, Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. So right now, Brian, is this a stunt, a desperate plea for likes? Like, what's going on with this?
I really don't think it is. I think Facebook has by far the largest social media active engaged base out there. It's better, maybe not bigger than YouTube, but like we were talking a couple weeks ago about Mr. Robot putting its entire pilot up on YouTube. This feels like just another flavor of that. So instead of TV putting it on YouTube early, we're seeing Amazon put it on Facebook early. But I will say, you sort of poo-pooed the conceit on this. I actually kind of adore the story. It's sort of a knocked up with a legitimate reason why they have to get married because of visas and whatnot. Where it's like there's been a number of stories and conceits like that. But I don't know. I bought this one. I thought it was kind of cool.
Cool. Parker, would you be convinced, do you think, to watch a show on Amazon Prime because it was on Facebook?
So this is where my EFF roots show that I don't have Flash on my computer.
Yeah,
so
there you
I
go.
Can't watch any videos on Facebook, so I actually no. But I
lost Parker, Amazon.
More power to him. More power to him.
Well, what's funny is I don't think they lost either of us. They just didn't gain either of us, because I will definitely watch this because I like being in the Amazon environment, and I'll definitely check it out. But it's like I don't know that for a speculative new series that I'm gonna want to sign up to my Facebook account for 48
just
hour
to get a
preview.
jump on it. Yeah.
Hey man, cinematographer Luke Newman created an 8K video named Ghost Towns, which you can stream from YouTube at 7680 by 4320 if you have the monitor for it. It was shot on a 6K Epic Dragon camera and scaled up. Here's the funny part, Tom. We've got a pretty good bandwidth here at the Casa de Brushwood, thanks to the AT&T Gigapower thing. And so I went ahead and cranked it all the way up. So I was downloading the full 8K stream, which, by the way, was apparently upscaled from a 6K stream, and then converted it back down to 1080p. Just show everyone how awesome it looks right there, if you can, Bryce. There we go. This is get ready for the 8K experience. For those audio listeners, you're
So
seeing a
that's 8
pinwheel
gray things in a wheel.
loading. And what's funny is you can see from the buffering bar that it's already like, 10, 15% uploaded, but it can't handle downscaling the upscaled content in there. So I think
we figured out the bit rate was 45 megabits per second.
45 megabits per second for your 8K stream.
Yeah. And there are a lot of things about Google that I have not liked over the last several years. One of the things that I love, though, is that there still is a part of them that is so forward thinking. And the best part about this, this was on Slashdot, is Google said, oh, yeah, we've been able to support 8K videos since 2010. We just didn't have any. So that's why it took till now for someone to discover it.
Finally.
Netflix has launched its redesigned website, meant to be easier to use on a touch screen as well as faster on any screen to be able to find what you want to watch and start watching it. A lot of contextual information just comes up instead of you having to, click through pages. Brian, I think you watch more Netflix on browsers than most people, certainly more than most people I know. What do you think of this?
Can I confess something? This is one of those things, and I'm going to give a big tip of the hat to Netflix because they're so good at the intuitive user interface that I honestly did not notice that anything had changed. And I've watched stuff on Netflix since this has come on here, but I'm loading it up now, and now that I know to look at it through the lens of what's changed, I can see it. I got to tell you, I actually feel like the Netflix browser interface is best in breed. I mean, that's more than mobile, more than PS4 or any of that other stuff. I watch most of my Netflix on my actual desktop computer. What about you, Parker?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that my reaction to website design changes is supposed to be outrage and pitchforks, but yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of Netflix, they released Orange is the New Black at 9 p.m. Eastern Thursday, meaning it was available in prime time. I think when I loaded up, it called it like a special sneak preview or early release or something. Netflix normally adds a new series at 3 a.m. Or so, but they changed this one to coincide with a fan event. Should this become the norm for Netflix primetime releases, I say 100% yes, because it was great. I was actually tuning in to see something else, and it was just right there in my face. I was like, Orange is the New Black. What about you? What about you, Parker? Should 9 p.m. be the new 3 a.m.?
I mean, it works better for my sleep schedule, so I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah, I'm
maybe
100%
it doesn't,
with both you guys.
Because if it comes out, then I start watching. I'm not going to stay up till 3 in the morning to watch it, but I would actually put in a few hours at 9.
Yeah.
So a little of both.
It's kind of a little bit of the appointment viewing sauce if I know it's coming at, say, 6 p.m. Pacific, to be able to like, oh, okay, this evening I'm going to watch it, versus like, oh, it comes at 3 a.m. and it's like, well, I guess I'll get around to watching it this evening, although a lot of people have watched it by then, so I'm really not watching it at the beginning, so I don't feel like I'm getting in at the, it's a whole different perception goes on in your head for some reason, whereas having it show up in prime time just makes sense, because that's when you're more likely to be sitting down to watch something.
And compare that to the appointment viewing. I know that, Game of Thrones releases at 9 p.m. because that's when it does on the cable, right? But it's like, why not just adopt that? There's kind of a reason that we're all fans of, there's a reason, prime time works.
Yeah.
It's because we're all available at that time.
All right, this is probably my favorite story in the whole lineup today. Terry Gilliam has been trying to make The Man Who Killed Don Quixote for 20 years. In fact, a documentary was finished, even though they've never made the movie, called Lost in La Mancha, documenting the accidents, the setbacks. They first attempted filming it in 1998, and now Amazon has signed a deal to make the film. They'll release it in theaters. That's how you get award consideration. And then they'll bring it to Amazon Prime. They want to start shooting in early 2016, and apparently they even have Jack O'Connell and John Hurt on board as lead actors.
Oh my God, John Hurt as Don Quixote? Are you kidding me? Do you think they're going to use any of the original footage? I assume all of that's flushed with some other studio, and they're just going to start from scratch.
Yeah, it could be a rights issue, but also just like if I were Gilliam, I'd just want to start over from scratch anyway. Maybe as an Easter egg, you could sneak in something from some of the earlier attempts.
Parker, did you see Lost in La Mancha? That's one of my great regrets, is that I never watched that documentary.
No, I haven't seen it. I actually didn't know about it until now, but I am so excited about both of these
Oh, dude,
things.
no, I hear great things about it, but that's definitely been on my list for a while.
There is a part of me, though, that worries about Amazon. I mean, maybe it's superstitious, but could how bad is the curse on the man who killed Don Quixote?
could the Don Quixote curse extend to ruin
Amazon?
Amazon's track record?
I mean, just the effect on downtown Seattle alone will be tremendous. This is very risky.
Fair enough. Tom, shall we see what's under surveillance,
Yeah,
sir?
let's do. There's a lot of money under surveillance.
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. Under surveillance.
So aside from E3 kind of sucking all the air out of the newsroom this week, the other thing that happened was Jurassic World opened to $511.8 million worldwide, the first movie ever to make more than $500 million in a weekend worldwide. And in the U.S., debuted with $204.6 million, making it the second biggest domestic opening of all time. I did certainly expected it to do well. I did not expect it to do this well.
Well,
I went to see it, Brian, and I can see why. It's not the best movie, but it is really enjoyable.
It's from what I've heard, it's pretty much Hollywood as hell. I know that your friend of mine, Peter Soretta from Slash Film, said that it was the best of all the Jurassic Park sequels. Which I guess means
Certainly, yeah.
which sort of is a way to dodge whether or not it's better than Jurassic
Could be
Park.
damning with faint praise. Sure.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, keep in mind, I liked all the sequels. I thought they were pretty good. But yeah, man, and it's funny because the trailers were so over the top that there was a big community saying like, dude, this is a sci-fi original movie gussied up to look like a Jurassic Park movie, but it sounds like people are walking away very, very happy with it.
Yeah, and like I said, I went and saw it, and it never felt like it dragged. Certainly a lot of homages to Jurassic Park, the original movie in there, little touches, but for me, those were fun. I don't know if if the younger audience gets them as much or not, or even cares, but I don't think they ever took away from the movie. I was never once surprised by what happened next, to be honest, but I also didn't care. Like, they never dwelled on stuff and made me try to feel like, oh, and here's the big reveal. It was just like, oh, you know what's coming. Let's just keep this chase scene moving.
Have you seen it yet, Parker? Is that on your list?
No, I stayed home and watched the toy commercial. So I feel like I got it now.
The Cliff Notes version. Yeah, good
Pretty
man.
much
Good
is
man.
the same thing.
But I am filing away this number for next time the movie industry is talking about how they couldn't possibly continue because of piracy.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind also, this is going to be an extraordinary year because if there's ever a year where something's going to shatter this record the same freaking year, it's going to be The Force Awakens at the coming up this winter.
I wonder what Star Wars toy commercial has that plot.
Right on. Hey, Tom, what are you watching these days?
The other things, I watched Sense8 episode 5. I was out of town shooting something for most of the week, so I didn't get a chance to watch more of those. And Eileen's watching them with me, so I kind of had to wait for her. That's why on Saturday morning I watched Orange is the New Black episode 1. I know we're going to talk about that. I got my next episode of The Shield in there as well. Of course, the Game of Thrones finale. So that's it for me this week.
Yeah, a lot of that we'll talk about on Spoiler in Time. The only thing that's not on Spoiler in Time I watched this week was the E3 coverage, and it was really fascinating. This is the first year that we've seen a lot of what previously might have been considered lower tier players acting as if they were Sony or Microsoft and having their own, or Nintendo having their own events. EA has done it before, but Bethesda came in, and last night, watching the Bethesda show was so polished from beginning to end. Even if you didn't care about games, I felt like even having seen all of the footage and all of the releases, if I could see it as a touring live stage show, I would go watch it again tonight. I would go sit in the audience and do it. Compare that to watching, of course, Microsoft was polished, and as we're recording this, Sony's doing their event. But man, EA's event was a hot bag of garbage. There were great games in there, and there's great games in EA's lineup. But you could tell it was as if someone just hit iPod Shuffle on the order of the segments, and as a result, you got this horrible mishmash with no thought to flow or from the audience perspective, where they have this touching story of a Yarny or Unraveled. It's this little knitted character moving around, and everyone's got tears in their eyes, feeling all the feels, and then they cut immediately to Highway to the Danger Zone playing, and a dude in a shabby or in a Plants vs. Zombie costume coming out and annoying everyone, and then getting chased off stage. It was I don't know. It's hire a director, EA. That's what I say. That's my whole review of E3.
But so your problems were with the press conferences themselves, not with the coverage.
Oh no. Well, I'm the coverage certainly. I'm talking. I watch their press releases like they are shows. I actually have watched virtually none of the punditry. That's for you and me.
They're
to
essentially infomercials, Brian.
You say info. Look, sure. They're infomercials the way Star Wars was a toy commercial. And if Star Wars is a toy commercial, then I'm fine with that. G.I. Joe was a toy commercial. I watched the hell out of those too.
G.I. Joe was definitely a toy commercial. Parker, what do you watch in your spare time? Do you have videos? Do you have series that you enjoy?
I actually just started Sense8, and I'm curious. I mean, you said you watched episode 5. I don't know if I'm going to make it to that.
How far in are you?
Go ahead.
How far in are you? Are you just one episode in?
I just watched the first episode this weekend.
The short pitch is the first episode is a lot of setup, and it's like, we get it. They're separate narratives. They're threads. They're going to come together at some point. When do they come together? And the answer is, if you can make it to the end of episode 3, that's all. I would say then you'll know whether or not you're in.
All right, I can commit to that, but I've been traveling, so I haven't been watching as much TV lately.
Fair enough.
Well, we got somebody on the lookout for cool new stuff, and that is our producer Neshcom, aka Bryce. Bryce, what do you got on the? I want to say like in your field glasses.
Oh, in my scope. In my
there you
scope.
go.
So I want to bring. My goal for this segment was to bring one show a week to recommend for people to watch. I have 2 shows this week because one of them I watched and I probably
already
wouldn't
getting greedy,
recommend.
Brian.
So the first series I kind of want to give a little nod to is a Hulu original Quick Draw. It is by John Lair and Nancy Howard. They worked on 10 Items or Less. It's a Western comedy, and it's kind of like Reno 911 in that it's a little improvised. I watched the first episode the other day, and I almost couldn't make it through it because it was very bad. It was very poorly shot. It was very poorly performed.
So I'm about to fist fight you right now. We covered this thing a year ago, and I loved it. That first episode cracked me the hell up. I love that show.
So I wasn't a fan of the first episode because I didn't like the production value. I thought it was very low. And so I watched the second episode, and it's very clear that the first one is very much a pilot. And the second episode is a lot better. That's what I'm going to say, is that it's a lot better. It's way more polished. But it's also just kind of like, I don't know, it's not my type of humor.
Oh, dude, I loved it. For the record, the more of those I watched and the more I got into the groove of the insanity of it. I mean, it's so ridiculous. I'm surprised that the costumes aren't made of cardboard. It's like, and I don't care.
It's essentially a sketch. It's a sketch.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
but it's, I don't know, the first episode really soured it for me, so I wanted to give something that had maybe a different appeal, and that is the other Hulu original, Deadbeat. This is about a
this is
psychic.
like the Soul Collector one, or
no? This guy is a medium, and he can see ghosts and he can be possessed, and he's a medium, and so he tries to finish these ghosts' unfinished business so that they can find peace, and it's very funny. It's kind of like if you took something like Psych and Pineapple Express. It's very much an adult humor. It's very much kind of a little bit of a stoner humor, kind of, but it's very funny. The pacing is really well done. And the subplot of this female ghost erotica writer who also claims to be a psychic is also interesting, and not just a romantic thing.
Is that one of the guards from Orange is the New Black? Is that the electrician guy?
Loose Check? That's a very good. Tyler Labine is his name, and he is not.
Maybe I'm racist against
overset guys with
beards.
Heavyset
guys with beards.
It's not.
All hipsters look alike to Brian.
All hipsters look alike to Brian.
So that's what's on the lookout for this week. Deadbeat and Quick Draw. They're both on Hulu. You need an account to watch them, and you need a subscription if you want TV, mobile, or HD.
Also, Quick Draw is awesome.
Thank you, Neshcom. Time for dispatches from the front, Neshcom, because you're the person who pushes the button that makes that happen.
That's good. That was smooth. Nobody, well done.
Nobody knew.
Hey, Brian and Tom, says Johnny in Placentia, California. That's an unfortunate name. Just a quick comment on something HBO Now and the recently announced Showtime streaming services that bring Netflix and Amazon Prime do not access to new movies that are locked into those pesky distribution windows that we all hate. Yes, we can rent them or buy them, but most of these movies will be available on HBO or Showtime before they're available on Netflix and Amazon Prime subscriptions. If you take this into consideration, the subscription costs don't seem quite as high when compared to a few new HD movie rentals each month. Thanks and keep up the great work. So you had something to say about this, Tom?
Yeah, it's not exactly true, although his point might still stand. It's not that HBO and Showtime have an exemption from the window. Netflix actually has deals with movie companies directly that HBO and Showtime do not. They're on an even playing field. They're basically after the same window, which is it's come out of the rental on airplanes hotel window, and it's come into the pay TV window. Netflix has deals with Weinstein, DreamWorks, Relativity. They have a deal with Disney that starts in 2016. They struck a very famous deal with DreamWorks to get it away from HBO. They just don't have as many of these, at least not yet, as HBO and Showtime do. Netflix also has that Epix partnership, as does Amazon, that basically allows them to get any movies that Epix gets in that pay TV window and bring them on to Netflix and Amazon Prime. But that said, you may be looking at HBO and Showtime's movies and saying, oh, that's a better selection. It just kind of depends on what movies you're into and the fact that HBO and Showtime have a wider selection to choose from.
Fair enough.
Let's go to the next one. This one comes from John, who says, longtime watcher here, Cordkiller for almost 2 years now, and I thought of you guys when I saw this. Give you a quick rundown. My wife bought a Chevy Spark 2 years ago. Stay with us. This actually is connected to cord cutting. He says Chevy promotional materials get sent to us, including a full-size magazine for advertising their products. Recently, on the front cover, they asked the question, are you ready to ditch cable? Intrigued?
Emphasis on the word ditch because it was a pun because it's a truck magazine. It's like, ditch, you drive through a ditch. Right.
Okay. Intrigued that a first-party automotive magazine would have such a diverse range of topics, I saved it from the recycle bin and scanned the cord-cutting article. While not anything new or groundbreaking about cord killing, it does show how far the movement has come in the past few years. 5 years ago, the idea seemed to be ridiculous. Now it's a mainstream movement with cord killers and cord nevers finding new and legal means of finding video entertainment. But yeah, pretty interesting that it was on the cover of a Chevy branded magazine.
Yes, exactly. Mickey says, hi, killers and guest. That's you. Since we've finally gotten Netflix in Australia, I've discovered something interesting about their setup. I have an Australian account, obviously, but when opening the app or visiting the site, I'm presented with whatever content region my IP address happens to belong to. As a person who frequently has to use VPNs for my home business, it can be fascinating to see the available content change so drastically as I swap between the US and UK and Australia. Thought that was worth sharing. Thanks for the show, guys. So I guess what she's saying is like if you have a US account, no matter where you are, I guess it'll either say no, you're not allowed to, or only show US. But if you have an Australian account, you can just...
what she's saying, it doesn't work that way at all. If you have a Netflix account and you log in, it'll say what country am I in, and it'll show you those services.
Well, okay, so but if that's the case, I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around what was keeping Australians from getting the service before.
They didn't have Netflix.
Well, yes, correct. Netflix did not have a I live in Australia option. It would previously just say you're not allowed to do it. Got it. Okay.
If you were in Australia, right, it would just block you and say, no, it's not available in this country. I'm curious, Parker, what the EFF's position is on this kind of geo-shifting. If you happen to be using a VPN, say for security reasons, it breaks terms of service. It's not necessarily illegal, though, is it?
No, and one of the things that we're really monitoring carefully is that there are a lot of really important, like you say, security reasons and other privacy concerns, reasons why you use a VPN. And in the name of cutting down on this, it's funny to call it piracy because it's watching something that is available somewhere else. You're paying for it. but you're VPNing into somewhere else. We've seen governments try to crack down on VPNs, and actually in Australia in particular, there is legislation that's set to move in the next week or so that could be read to address VPNs in particular. The government has said that they don't think VPNs are covered under it. That VPNs will continue to be legal, but they do get a lot of pushback from movie studios and such. And so this is we monitor it mostly in terms of keeping people's legal right to use VPNs and to use their computers the way they want to.
Well, it's funny because like that certainly makes sense in a case where, you know, they window different regions. If you're a studio or a content owner, you window different regions for the case of maximizing profit because, no, we're not ready to go to Europe at this point. It'll get there at some point. But we ran into an interesting thing. We got a very irate fan when I casually mentioned that I use a VPN in order to watch a BBC channel. What was their the BBC iPlayer to watch Sherlock, and he was genuinely upset because he's like, I pay taxes for that content. I pay a television license fee, and you are not entitled to it until it's windowed and showed up there. You just stole from me, and was very, very upset. And I thought that was an interesting case where it's like, I think he might have been right in that regard. I may have stolen 5 cents from the country of England. I will mail a check immediately.
Well, this is stealing is kind of a loaded word here because when you made your copy that you watched, no one was any poorer for it. But you know, ultimately, you can have sympathy for the businesses that depend on this business model. But what we're really monitoring for is that if your way of preserving that business model is by cutting into people's sort of fundamental computing rights. So your ability to use a VPN, your ability to use an encrypted connection, that sort of thing, then I absolutely think that the priority should be on those fundamental rights and not on the company's business model. I actually don't think they clash that often. I think that, you know, as long as the British television owners are still paying their 5 cents, for each show, the BBC has the money to make it, no matter how many free riders there are around the world. But even if they were to clash, I'd still side with the users.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess if to my dumb ape brain, it sounds like what you're saying is like it's on iPlayer to maybe come up with a scheme besides geo blocking, maybe something, you know, where you create an account on there and you verify you have to have an England address or something in there. It's like fair enough. All right.
It's always funny to me that in all these situations, if it's audio only, all these arguments go away. Like MLB will just stream the audio from any market, anywhere if you pay for the subscription. They don't like block the audio if you're in the home market like they do with video. Or likewise, the BBC radio. You can access all the BBC radio anywhere in the world without having to pay the user license fee, even though the license fee subsidizes the radio just as much as the television. But for some reason, because, well, television's more valuable, there's that perceived feeling that I could make a lot more money off of that selling it. And maybe it's not even just perception. They try to lock it down and pretend like we don't have the internet.
Yeah, which makes me think that the next phase is, you know, once we all have Oculus Rifts and all of a sudden 2D video is a second-rate experience, all of this is going to go away.
Let's bring it on. Bring it on. That's what it takes.
Let's hope. And finally, Dave wrote in and wants to know, he has so much stuff to watch. He has limited time. How many episodes do you guys usually give as an audition before you commit to watching a full season or series? And he mentions Sense8 and the fact that we talked on Spoiler in Time about episodes 1 through 4 as the reason he went ahead and gave it a chance that he probably wouldn't have otherwise.
You know what? I'm going to say this is not like a hard and fast rule. This is not a polemic I'm offering. I'm going to say, judging by my own experiences, it seems to be do or die by the 3rd or 4th episode, because things that I've kept going have hit by 3 or 4. Marco Polo, we begrudgingly went through because it was good enough by 3 or 4. But meanwhile, like 4th or 5th episode of Twin Peaks, I still wasn't feeling it. It fell off, and it wasn't a match. Same Mad Men, I went all the way to the 2nd season before I dropped off. And the problem, the biggest offender in this regard was when doggone it, why am I spacing on it? What's the one, the sci-fi one with Leonard Nimoy that
Fringe.
Fringe, everyone's telling me, you just got to get to season 3, bro. And I'm like, it's not going to happen. And the same thing for Babylon 5. I'm not getting into season 4 before it finally gets good.
I'm the opposite. I wait till season 3 to make my decision about anything. Like, no, I'm sort of exaggerating there, but no, I will continue to watch something if I see glimmers of things that I like, knowing how long it can take to get a rhythm together on this sort of stuff. So I'll stick with stuff way too long. I will subject myself to many bad episodes when I probably shouldn't.
What about you, Parker?
I outsource it. I just let my friends can watch however much they can tolerate, and then if I get a recommendation from someone whose taste I trust, then I will stick through seasons and seasons and seasons, and it doesn't usually disappoint.
All right,
but it can take a long time.
Multiple approaches, Dave. Hope that helps you out. Pick the one that suits you. Like picking a suit off the rack. And that is it for this episode of Cordkillers. Parker Higgins, an honor, a pleasure to have you along with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. This was a blast.
Yeah, man. Definitely hoping that you'll join us again sometime. Where can people get more of your fantastic thoughts?
Well, I'm on Twitter at XOR. That's XOR. And EFF's on Twitter as EFF and EFF.org and all over the web, really.
Heck yeah, man. By the way, we record live when, Tom?
Well, our website, Brian, is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. And then I'm allowed to say that we're live on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific.
I like the fact that you acted like there had to be a secret until they knew the
Terms
other
of service. I have to read it in that
Sorry,
order.
no, I didn't mean to mess up the ritual, man. Hey, man, great episode. Good times, guys. We'll catch you next time. Hey guys, Tom and Brian here. We just wanted to say thank you to all of our $5 patrons who keep us loud, live, and independent. You guys make Cordkillers the production that it is.
Your name appears in the video credits and appears in our hearts. And if you'd like to become one of them or see who they are, you can go to patreon.com/Cordkillers.
You'll need to do more than just go there, though. You'll have to sign up and, pledge an amount. But
unless you just want to see who they are.
Well, I mean, you could gawk. That's a little creepy, isn't it?
If you want to be a gawker,
let's go.
It's up to you.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.